Vážené divačky, vážení diváci, milovníci vědy a dokumentárního filmu. Mé jméno je Dominik Vontor, jsem asistentem Industry for Science a vítám vás na 56. ročníku festivalu Academia Film Olomouc při rozhovoru k filmu Občan Nobel. Mám obrovskou radost, že pozvání přijali dva významní hosté, kterými jsou režisér snímků Stéphane Gouel a držitel Nobelovy ceny za chemii, biofyzik, pan Jacques Debouchet. Good evening, gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining. I have a first question for you, Professor Debouchet, because you compared everything that followed after you received the Nobel Prize to a marathon. And first of all, I'm very happy that AFO can be one of the 8 stops in this marathon run. But let me ask you, what is behind the finishing line? What is at the end? What is Jacques Debouchet's life goal?
Well, a lot of things has changed since the Nobel Prize. The first thing is that I got a voice and I like to speak. And with the Nobel Prize, you can speak and people are listening. They are listening as if you would be genius and everything you say would be very smart. And I have always been politically active. So, and since 2 years or so, the world situation has changed very much. Not so much the world, but the way people are looking at it and following Greta Thunberg and so. There is much more to say than before, at least for me. And so what has changed is that I'm allowed to speak and I speak about that. And it's, in fact, this change has been, became the substance of the film, which was not at all foreseen at the beginning. At the beginning, I was happy to be able to participate to a film about science. And science is not forgotten, but science was a kind of support for the continuation.
Stéphane, did you know Jacques before the filming? And why did you choose him to be the subject of the film?
No, I didn't know Jacques before he got the Nobel Prize, because I'm interested in science, but I'm not a science freak, especially electronic cryomicroscopy. And and Jacques was not very much present in the media or in the public space before here in Switzerland, before he got his Nobel Prize. So the idea of the film actually was the idea of the producer of the film, Emmanuel Jetta, who as soon, the very first day, like we see in the beginning of the film, as soon as Jacques received the news that he was awarded the Nobel Prize, even before he got to Stockholm to get the prize, Jacques appeared suddenly almost like out of nowhere, as this very charismatic and then committed character. And the producer, Emmanuel, felt at this moment that there was a potential there with this figure, with this character. And as Jacques said, his idea, or their idea, or maybe the way the producer approached Jacques at first, was to seduce him into the idea of making a film, was to say, hey, we will make a film about your discovery, about your scientific work. And then he contacted me after Stockholm, and I told him, well, listen, it's. I think the character is amazing. This man is a wonderful man, but I don't think that it's going to be that easy to make a film for cinema with his scientific work. And what interests me personally as a filmmaker most is the fact that his life is changing. It's changing, as you said before, this marathon. His life is changing every day, and is on a mission. Is a man on a mission. He felt from the beginning that he wanted to make an impact on society. So I figure maybe there we have a film for cinema.
Jacques, you were working on cryo-electronic microscopy since 80s. So how come that you received the Nobel Prize after 40 years and 10 years into your retirement?
Yes, the discovery was, well, there were a number, but the basic discovery, the cornerstone of cryo-electron microscopy is the discovery that water can be cooled, become solid without changing its liquid structure. It's immobile, but it has keep the structure. Therefore, there is no damage to biological material. And this was the basic observation. And it was a big surprise. It was thought to be impossible, physically impossible, but it was so. And then it took a lot of work. 35 years of work by a lot of people, especially the two other co-laureates of the prize, to make it progress. And at some moment, it's becoming so good that you can see atoms. And when you see atoms, it's changed name. It becomes chemistry. And therefore, chemists became very nervous. Even the chemist from the Royal Academy of Sweden became also nervous and decided that cryo-electron microscopy was very worthwhile. And indeed, since that time, since the prize in the 3 years, cryo-EM just continued to explode. And you can imagine now with the virus, all this, any variant of the virus is, of course, a topic for cryo-EM, and cryo-EM provide very important data for the fight against the virus.
Jacques, do you know about the process that involves the Nobel Prize awards? Do you know how the committee decides about the laureates?
Yes, I have heard about the process. I know a little bit, but it happens without advertisement. It's very discreet. And of course, I knew nothing before, and nobody knows. There are talks about leaks, but in our case, there were no leaks.
Yes, but Jacques, you were kind of hoping, or at least expecting, that it might happen.
Yes, in fact, when we made our discovery, when we once cooled water under such condition that it became very cold, minus 200 degrees or so, and it was not crystallized, we understood that we had something very special. And I told my colleague, hey, we have something great. And then the thing developed, and it was in 2015 at the Gordon Conference, at a scientific conference about cryo-electron microscopy. There were hundreds of cryo-electron microscopies and then we understood that it was a revolution. The revolution of atomic structure was there. And since that time, well, it was discussed a lot, the importance of this. It became the method of the year for the journal Science and so forth. And the day before I got the prize, I shared the prize with the two other, we were at home with my family, and we heard that the physicist had got the Nobel Prize the physics Nobel Prize was to the gravitation waves, a beautiful thing. And I told my family, tomorrow is chemistry, 10% for us. Voila.
Well,
you see, it was in the air a little bit. We could not know, but voila, little bit.
Stéphane, from artistic point of view, Professor Debouchet's discovery is creating those wonderful pictures imaging 2- and 3-dimensional structures of the biomolecules. Do you ever find inspiration in science for your work?
The problem is to film science. Science is very difficult to film. Science, at least microscopy, produces images, but not real images, images that need to be interpreted. Actually, the molecules are like 3D animations, that you can build in cinema studios. But other than that, I think that filming people in labs is very difficult. And that's why this project was appealing to me, because because Jacques made this discovery 40 years ago or 50 years ago, except some archive material, I wouldn't need to film people in labs, with white suits and microscopes and stuff. And for me, it was much more appealing to film Jacques, for example, in the nature, in the glaciers. The ice, the cold water was always the main story of his scientific work. Not only water, but cold or extremely cold water. But there again, he spent all his youth and next to a glacier, and now the glacier are melting, and that meets his actual commitment for against climate change. So for me, it was a source of image and visual form also. Not only the science, but the way that his preoccupation could be illustrated, also filming nature.
I think nowadays, Stefan, you could make a scientific film with the development of cryo-EM. You see, everybody knows about the spikes of the virus, and they know that the shape of the spike is essential. And so you could show the atomic shape of this, and then you provide with an extraordinary suspense the new mutant. And you show how the new mutant make a modification and why the vaccine is still working or doesn't work anymore because of this small little chance, small little change. This could be a very visual scientific document. Good luck.
Yes, you're right. It would be a thriller, actually. It would be a real thriller. But I'm not so much into thriller. I like to make film about people more than about molecules, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Jacques, cryo-electron microscopy, a discovery that you developed with your 2 fellow laureates, Joachim Frank and Richard Henderson, is said to be a really powerful tool in medicine because it can help produce and develop new drugs. Maybe can you describe how it helped in visualization the coronavirus or producing the COVID vaccine?
Well, at my talk in Stockholm, I mentioned I was in pain to describe how our discovery could help medicine, and so I mentioned that it could help something with Alzheimer, and why some structure of Alzheimer, if we could follow them better, it would change things. But nowadays, really, you see. You show the shape of the surface of the spike protein of the virus, the place which is attacking the cell, and you show how the vaccine is coming to block that by sticking to it. And sticking exactly to this shape, and you could show how the mutant has a different shape. Therefore, the key doesn't go nicely in the pocket, and therefore doesn't work or still work. And this is how the visual and the advantage of cryo-EM is that you would get the new mutant, and 2 weeks later, you have the three-dimensional structure of the atomic aspect that the chemist need to see and to understand in order to understand why the vaccine is good or not good.
Jacques, in the film, it's obvious that you have always leaned towards the role of activist, and you seem to be very understanding of the position of the young people. So this is a question for both of you, gentlemen. What is your perspective on the generation of young activists?
Yes, of course. Yes, they are right. You see, look at me, look at Stefan, look at you. You are well established in life. And how is it possible for somebody well established in life to recognize that we have been totally wrong? Yeah? And those children we are wasting their future. Yeah? And realizing the future of my children and of my grandchildren, we made it completely wrong. And we have to change now, very strictly. And that's who understand that? The young people, because it is their life. And, well, another category of people who can understand, these are the old people who are out of the business. They don't have they don't have anything to prove, and therefore the movement of the present time movement of the climate strike or XR or so are very young people, but they are very remarkably supported by the grandparents. That's normal. But the difficult part are the people who are in the system. And that's the problem, because those people who are established, they are those who are making this decision. They are those who make politics, who decide to invest in more development and favor, I don't know, fossil fuel or so. And those has to change. And this is difficult for those.
And for me as a filmmaker, it was a very important thing in terms of dramaturgy for the film, that we could witness during the 2 years of shooting the rise of this youth movement, and the way, the impact that it had on all of us and on Jacques, as he said, and other people of his generation, because Jacques has this capacity to recognize that we are responsible for what is going on, and what can we do with that? And the only thing that humbly we can do is to help and participate to the struggle. And at first, we knew that Jacques wanted to use his voice, his new voice, the new voice that the Nobel Prize gave him, to claim a very strong message. But okay, it would talk about scientific responsibility, about migration, about climate change. But in the summer of 2018, when suddenly we had this huge rise of the Friday for Future movement, I could see suddenly that Jacques had like some kind of a revelation. He was moved so much by the huge demonstration that we had here in Switzerland, but also that happened in many other places around the world, that he was kind of lifted, like almost spiritually, I would say, to march with this young generation. And that's the moment when, on a very egoistical point, I really found out that we had a film. We had a film that would, convey a strong message.
Mm. Let me try another point of view of the same thing, my point of view. You see, having a Nobel Prize the most obvious way to continue is, since you are well known, you want to be a wise person. So I want that all the people in the world will consider that, oh, this guy is very, very wise. And then I move with these young people, and they took me with them. And I moved with them. And my brother told me, oh, be careful. You are going to be an activist. But that's exactly it. Yes, I became an activist. Well, because the issue is necessary, I'm proud to be an activist. Of course, the reason of being an activist is a vital reason for you also, not only for me. And so, must be.
Well, I have a question for both of you, and this is a question of social responsibility in science and also in art, in filmmaking. What kind of activism do you consider more important? Is it civil activism or political power?
You know, we have direct democracy in Switzerland. Switzerland is a very hyper-democratic country. You know, you can, if you get enough signature, as we see in the film, you know, Jacques is collecting signatures in the street for a petition. You can make a vote. We vote 4 times a year on different topics, you know, and so we can vote for new laws in Switzerland. But it takes so much time, and there is so much resistance for the type of changes that are really needed to fight against climate change. But we don't have this political time, unfortunately. And if we don't have it here in Switzerland, I don't think people can have it somewhere else. So it's my opinion. I need other type of activism is necessary. And of course, now after we had this period of great enthusiasm by the youth movement. Then we have the pandemic that put kind of a stop to that. But now things, at least here in Switzerland, are starting to boil again, and people are going back to into the streets, and the changes are going to be made, hopefully, by the power of the streets, also not only by the governmental system.
Well, there is this big question of social disobedience. And civil disobedience, which means that the politics, the official politics is too slow. So if you want to move it, you have to move it in some way which is not completely legal. And there is, of course, how far can you go? We are, in my group and in most of these young people, they are strongly non-violent. And now, in front of the enormous problem of the future, I'm afraid that people are going to be more nervous, and there is the risk of violence. In the history of, for example, the famous situation in India, it was difficult to keep this large number of people non-violent. And now in the year to come, we have to have a revolution. And revolution in thinking, revolution in action, revolution in how our civilization is working, and how to get this revolution accepted by the law at the end and non-violent. That's a big problem for our future.
Can you say how did the COVID pandemics affected climate activists and how it influenced your activism and your work?
Yes, of course. Until the beginning of last year, the movement of the young people, activists of the climate or the environment, was was developing very strongly and rapidly. Then came the virus, quick, everything was closed. Now it has to start again, and it start again. In Switzerland and in several other places, it start again. But this is one of the interaction with the virus. The other one, we have seen with the virus that we can act very strongly, very rapidly. On the 13th of March last year, suddenly our government put every citizen in Switzerland in prison. You stay home and you don't move from home. Suddenly, this is something which was unthinkable before. And it's possible. Even a democratic government can make very, very strong and rapid decision. That's a right example. That's what we have to do with not the pandemic. Yes, it's hopefully the vaccine will help us to go out, but with the climate problem, climate and environment problem, we need to have a government making extraordinarily strong decision. Out with the cars, out with the fossil fuel, and not until 2050. People rich, country as rich as Switzerland should give the example, should be exemplar, and they should move much more rapidly than those who are really in great difficulty, like India, like China, like Africa, though Africa is not polluting very much. Oh, no, 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 no.
Jacques, I'm not going to ask you what sparked your passion towards science, because I know you don't like this question, but we are talking about this kind of role models, whether it's a government, whether it's an activist. And I want to ask you both, who was your inspiration? Who was the model of a teacher or mentor that inspired you?
Je sais pas now, Jacques. Do you have a model in life? I witnessed. I'm not gonna say. I don't. Well, I have many models in filmmaking, but just to go on, because I witnessed when Jacques met Greta Thunberg. We see the sequence we see in the film, and for me, it was like if when I was a kid, had met, I don't know, Wim Wenders, for example, who was like my huge, or Jim Jarmusch, are the filmmakers that I loved, like beyond everything. And when I saw Jacques waiting for Greta to arrive, and then he was like, yeah, like a teenager, waiting for her to arrive, and he was so excited, and he was like, he had such light in his eyes, and then she arrived, and then she just walked by because for her it was just like another old Nobel Prize, maybe she met so many Nobel Prizes. But and then they had this wonderful relation. Yeah, I had the impression that at this point, this man Jacques met really kind of his idol, of the moment. I don't.
Yes, yes, and of course, we tend to think that our masters are older people, but nowadays, since our generation and made it wrong, where are our masters? We should change. Our masters are those who are coming. Therefore, that's true. To your question, I would say my master is Greta, or all these young people of 20 years old who are active and they are intelligent, they are convinced. Bah, most people say, what can you hope from them? They have only their telephone that the only thing and they want to go to Barcelona for the weekend. No, that's not true. A lot of them are not like that. And those who are moving toward the future are not those ones. They are intelligent, reasonable, and well educated and courageous. These are my models.
To be honest, I found the film a bit ambiguous as to what to think about Jacques. So I'm wondering, has the Nobel Prize changed you, or has it changed the people around you?
Well, that it changed how people see me, that's obvious. Huh? I became a kind of unrealist, a kind of dream, not real person. Huh? That should be forgotten, and I try to fight against that. But the Nobel Prize brought me. You see, with the voice, you are responsible. Evolution, life has developed on Earth as without goal, without responsibility. Evolution goes without a goal. It doesn't know where it goes. Now come the human being, and human being is able to think about his future. And with the capacity of thinking about the future bring the necessity for responsibility. And of course, we all have feel a little bit responsible, a little bit, but that's clear that the Nobel Prize with the voice gave me a much stronger sense of responsibility. I can't help. With something as big as the Nobel Prize, you cannot escape that.
Stéphane, how long did you follow Jacques, and how did his interaction with the world and the people evolved over time?
We filmed over a period of 2 years, and it's changed. I mean, he became at first, everyone was like, okay, discovering this character, very with a lot of sympathy, because he's this original, outgoing, funny, but very serious. But he says very sincere, for the media. That's why the media were going crazy about him, because the guy had no limit. He was like out of control sometimes, just saying everything that came out of his mind. And then suddenly Jacques learned little by little that what he was saying about responsibility, and also the way that people sometimes don't understand or understand wrongly or have another interpretation of what you're saying. And so he started to get, suddenly his image started to change a little bit. And it was not so much this funny old man, but it was the guy who was giving us sometimes like a mirror in which our image was not so flattering, especially coming from a man of his age, of his generation. And nowadays, 1 year after finishing the film, finishing shooting the film, his image has also changed again a little bit, because now is still very much active, very, very much active. And he has been active with a demonstration of people who are occupying a mine here in Switzerland, young people. And suddenly you had confrontation with the law, the police, and Jacques is still there, with these young people, supporting them, always appealing for non-violence, always. But suddenly some people, on the right especially, are starting to say, well, Jacques, you make too much noise. You should now disappear. You should now retire. We've heard you enough. And now you should go back to be quiet old man. But unfortunately, I think it's too late for that. He's not going to shut up.
Jacques, what is your secret for being so enthusiastic about your work and your life? How do you find the energy and the inner peace to be like this?
This I don't know. Certainly, there is probably a little bit of genetics in it.
Yeah.
And there is probably also certainly a lot of education and of parents. I have been lucky, and lucky again. My parents make that I became confident in life. I thought that life is correct. I knew that I am not with tricky persons. And also later, you ask who was my adult model. There is one, my professor, my PhD professor, Professor Kallenberg, we were friends until his death 10, 15 years ago, was one of those good person who support me during all my career, during the PhD and during all the career. You know, these old people who are, with those people, life is correct. And having the feeling, this feeling, it's so good. And that's true, I'm afraid that it's much more difficult now. I have a blog, and the blog produces a lot of interaction. But I am, since a very short time, I am horrified to see the number of stupid personal aggressions. It's 40% are stupid personal aggressions. Huh? What do you do with that? Why do they hope? Ridiculous. Yes. But that's not the good way to finish.
Well, Jacques, your story is just incredible. All your successes, all the troubles that you have to face, the way how you think and how you live right now is just a story for a feature film. So my last question is, who would play Jacques Debauchet in the feature film? What actor would you pick?
Robert Redford, of course.
I loved film when I was young. And then I stopped going to the movie. And so I don't know these actors.
But then again, I think reality is much stronger than fiction in this case, because I could not imagine actually a better actor than Jacques himself, because make sure that he is acting sometimes, he is acting. He knows where the camera is. He knows what's the good timing. He knows where is the light, He knows those things. So it's a very, very...
Stefan, you see how lucky I am also with other friends like Stefan. He's so good with me. Merci beaucoup, Stefan. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, it was such a lovely time talking to you. We are very happy that the film Citizen Noble is in our competition. Thank you very much for joining and have a pleasant evening.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Bonne soirée et bon succès avec votre festival.
Merci beaucoup. A děkuju taky vám, našim divákům a posluchačům, za vaši pozornost. Snímek Občan Nobel, stejně jako další dokumenty, můžete zhlédnout na naší online platformě watchandknow.cz. Za AFO 56 Dominik Vontor.